Friday, November 3rd. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV. Railroad money on his mother's side, old Chicago money on his father's, stood red-faced with fury. CEO to Beaumont Financial, one of the biggest brokerages in the Windy City, his great-grandfather, the original Rowan Ashford Beaumont, had started it back in the 1940s after returning from the war. The family dabbled with more than stocks, property, antiques, a wine empire, even a tech division specializing in luxury flat-screen TVs. Their collection of stocks read like a library catalog. Their money made money. Rowan was also the most beautiful man I'd ever met. Blonde hair salon perfect, clothes tailored exquisitely to his form and his body. He had his own personal trainer, a man highly recommended by the finest clients. He was also the father to the man I loved, Oliver Beaumont. I don't use the word dad when speaking about Mr. Beaumont. Rowan Beaumont hadn't earned the title. He had earned the Chicago penthouse we stood in, 67 floors above the street, and furnished in a modern style with lots of polished chrome and white marble. Even the handcrafted doorstop cost more than my monthly rent. A single family picture hung over the sterile mantel, Oliver from 10 years ago, and his parents. Beside it was a single family memory, a picture of Oliver outside the theater he loved, in full costume. What was that play? He was one of the many background characters in Annie. "You're only in this for the money," Mr. Beaumont said, his voice calm. He said it like he was reading from an encyclopedia, no warmth, only stating a fact. "You're nothing but a gold digger, and not even a good one." My heart stuttered. I'd never heard Mr. Beaumont sound so cold. I knew he never liked me, but this was on another, deeper, and scarier level. "I've never asked you or your son for money," I shot back. "I'm Kevin Norwood, and tonight is going straight to hell." The maid pretended not to listen as she cleared the last of the dishes. Beyond the glass doors to the balcony, the Chicago skyline glittered, cold, distant, indifferent. "Kevin," he said, his voice hardening, "I don't want or need your influence distracting Oliver from what's important." "Shouldn't he decide that?" I said. "Why isn't he here?" Mr. Beaumont ignored both my questions and snatched a manila envelope from the table, ripped it open, and slid a document straight toward me. He didn't smirk. He was too upper class for that. Instead, he gave me a small, victorious smile. "What is all this?" I asked. His blue eyes, the same color as his son's, chilled me. "It's a restraining order I've been working with my lawyer on. We file tomorrow morning." I hesitated before picking up the papers. My hand began shaking, but I forced it still. I picked up the document. "What for?" "I don't want you near my son or our home." "But we love each other." "There are nobler causes than love." Mr. Beaumont stood, facing the penthouse window, dramatically turning away. Had this pose worked in the boardrooms? I don't expect a florist would understand, but a Beaumont has certain expectations that must be met. "What you really mean," I spat, standing also, "is that you're rich, and I'm not." "Don't be vulgar." Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV faced me, a weariness about his eyes. "Since Oliver's mother died, I've had to raise him alone." I returned his stare, unable to hide the disgust in my voice. Sending Oliver off to boarding schools for most of the year does not count as raising anybody. You farmed him to others, so you didn't have to deal with your son. That is not fatherhood. It's a portfolio manager. Mr. Beaumont stood to his full 6'2" and folded his arms. "I forbid you from returning here, from seeing my son, from ever contacting him again." "He's 22, I said. You have no say, legal or otherwise, in his life. As his father, I have every right. Something about his posture told me that he wasn't bluffing. The law says otherwise, I replied. This time he smiled, but it contained a brief hint of sadness. The law tends to be more understanding toward people on my end of the social ladder than on yours. I had no response to that. Mr. Beaumont placed a key on the table. I'm returning this. What are you doing with my apartment key? I gave it to Oliver. While we were having dinner, his said, voice calm, I had my staff remove every trace of you from among my son's things, and had others remove Oliver's things from your apartment. You entered my apartment? You had no right. A servant entered, eyes lowered to the floor. He carried a silver tray with 2 stacks of $100 bills. Rowan scowled. It is obvious you don't understand the scandal this would have caused. I am prepared to compensate you for the inconvenience. $5,000 in cash. You will never contact my son again. My throat closed. I couldn't speak, not even to defend myself. Not that he would believe me, or even listening. The tightening of the muscles around his eyes told me I had just crossed a line. I love him. He loves me, I whispered. Something in the air stilled. For a moment his face relaxed and something flickered through his eyes. Sadness, maybe? Then his jaw hardened. No, he said, his voice low, but his eyes blurred with unshed tears. You loved the money, the prestige of dating a Beaumont. You never loved him. I do love Oliver. Please, believe me. Take the money, take your copy of the restraining order, and get out before I change my mind. I nodded and didn't say anything. What would be the point? Frustration clogged my throat, and I was close to screaming. This wasn't fair, but I'd learned a long time ago that life didn't care. I took the restraining order, but didn't touch the money. Your cash disgusts me. And you disgust me. We're even, he said. I left. My eyes burned, both with tears and a bitterness that simmered in my heart. The drive home was a confusing mash of anger, resentment, along with an unhealthy dose of self-loathing. My neck and shoulders were so tight it threatened a migraine. I own a small 2-bedroom apartment that is a level above tenement housing. 1 room for me, 1 for my old junk. I'm a florist. Norwood Family Botanicals is the family store. My dad and Mom opened it 20 years ago. My older sister didn't want it, so I inherited it. Mom still works part-time. But Dad, his cardiologist had ordered him to take it easy. He works behind the scenes, handling the books, ordering supplies, managing payroll. We have 4 employees and are closed on Sunday. I met Oliver 18 months ago. I had made a $500 red and white rose arrangement for a Valentine's night dinner for his grandparents. I delivered. I ran into him by accident. He told me about the theater. I went to one of his plays where he was a flying monkey in Wizard of Oz. Then we started dating, and within a year we had become serious, as in, I had bought the ring. 18-karat rose gold, engraved with Kevin plus Oliver. Stupid me. Oliver had found it in my apartment, buried under my boxer briefs. Guess I'm pretty bad at hiding things. I should have proposed it that second, but I wanted to make it romantic and proper and something you see in a Lifetime movie. Well, it didn't quite work out like that. Haven't proposed yet. Even gay guys deserve a happily ever after. I'd gone over to ask his father's permission to marry, the ring tucked in my jacket pocket. I displayed it proudly. It cost me $4,000. It had taken me 6 months to pull the financing together. $4,000 to Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV is an insult. At first, the difference in our paychecks didn't matter. The Beaumonts made 7 figures a month, sometimes 8. I made 5 digits a year, usually mid-range, and it went down more often than up. I began to hear whispers when Mr. Beaumont had spoken over the phone with his brother. "Are you sure you can trust him? He's so common," the brother had said. "Kevin is a disappointment," Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV had said. Or that time Oliver was on speakerphone. We'd been back at my apartment. "Father, you're being paranoid. Kevin has never asked me for anything." And then his father answered, "He's not on our level, isn't part of our circle, and smells like dirt. You can do better." He said it in his boardroom negotiator's voice, but underneath it was sharp. "I love him," Oliver had said, and it made a warm pride run up my spine. Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV had sighed. "Son, do you think love has anything to do with life? Keep an eye on your accounts. I don't trust him." Do you know what the difference between low class, middle class, and high class is? Low class doesn't care what they eat. It's survival. Middle class cares about the quality of the food. It's nutrition. High class demands the presentation be perfect. It's not survival or nutrition. It's about the flow, the ambiance, an emotionally atmospheric display designed to elicit an emotion. Some people call it art. My stomach curdled. I have other words for high-class ambiance. Monday, November 6th. Somebody pounded on my door. It was 8 a.m. I opened it, and a woman who looked like a drill sergeant said, "You Kevin Norwood?" "Yes," I replied. "Sign here." She presented an electronic keyboard. I signed my initials with my pointer finger. She handed me a large manila envelope. "You've been served." "I'm not married." "Lucky guy," she said, with barely a trace of humor. "Temporary orders already in effect. Court dates in the packet." Mr. Beaumont was serious? About the restraining order? My world narrowed to the manila envelope. "Have a nice day," she said. Standing in the middle of the hall, I ripped open the packet. A no-contact order between me and the Beaumonts, their residence, their job, and worst, Oliver, my boyfriend? The hearing was formally scheduled Monday, November 27th, at 3 p.m. In 3 weeks from today. Wednesday, November 8th, 2 days after I'd been served, and I hated Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV, his penthouse, and that entire life. 2 days where no matter what noise I had in the background, the apartment felt empty. My life felt empty. The first thing I had done, before even getting drunk, was call the manager and have my locks changed. Cost me $50, but worth it. I also created a journal just to let my feelings out. Betrayal doesn't even begin to cover it. What I feel is something much darker. Can I do anything about it? No. Can't call him, can't visit the penthouse, can't write, only sit with an ache that left me numb most nights. Will the feeling go away? I hope. I poured myself into work, trying to forget. A woman I've never seen walked into the shop and spoke with Chrissy, the new part-timer. She ordered a $200 bouquet with white lilies, white carnations, white birds of paradises, and white hydrangeas. The name on the order? Janet. She was dressed in a blazer and a crisp white shirt, sculpted eyebrows, lips the subtle color of ripe apricots, red hair that hung past her shoulders, and a perfume of something high-end. I'd never seen her before, but something about her seemed familiar. She paid in cash, and Chrissy gave me the order. I thought nothing of it. After all, though larger than most orders, it was just another order, and you don't have to worry about cash getting declined. The finished arrangement stood 2 feet tall, a cascade of white and green that flowed over the vase and onto the table. Mom had taken the lead and made it spectacular. Janet picked it up just before we closed, speaking mostly with Mom. She wore large dark glasses this time. Guess what was waiting for me in front of my door when I got home at 8:30? No note, no letter, no Janet. I made a space for it on my kitchen table and called Mom to tell her. She said, "Funny way to go about getting your money back." That Friday, November 10th, I went to the grill on 7th to celebrate my friend Anton's 30th birthday. Alone. My friends knew my story, and, for once, kept their mouths shut. Anton made the cake. Go figure. At least he got what he wanted. 6-layer red velvet, dark chocolate filling, white chocolate ganache instead of frosting. A smooth finish with curled chocolate shavings as decoration. My friends never said it, but I think they hoped this would distract me from the Beaumonts. I missed Oliver. Call me stupid, but I kept the ring box in my jacket pocket. It made a weird lump, but I didn't care. The grill on 7th is a family-friendly place. Normal prices, normal burgers, normal steaks. We had a picture of limoncello to share among the 6 of us. It was when Anton blew out the candles. We made sure they were exactly 31. Thing looked like a blowtorch. That I felt the odd sensation on the back of my neck. The small hairs stood up. Something itched just beneath my thoughts. I looked around. The place was half full, mostly families, a few couples, and our party. Some people sat solo at the bar. One man looked at me. Hispanic, dark hair, navy blue suit, looked like an off-duty cop. I'd guess he was 45. His eyes met mine, then froze. In only 15 seconds, he dropped some money on the counter and walked out. I glanced out the windows. He climbed into a red Ford sedan and drove away. Anton looked at me. Issues? Maybe. I think someone was watching me. Janet again? He asked. No. The following Wednesday, November 15th, an older gentleman with gray hair walked into the store and ordered an anniversary arrangement to surprise his wife with. Something with roses, but not red ones, and baby breaths, and he wanted a clear glass jar with water pearls. It wasn't the guy from the birthday party. It didn't look anything like Janet. Maybe it was a normal order. Once again, Chrissy put it together. She did a great job. Total cost? $237. He paid in cash, and Carl was the name on the order. I didn't arrive home until 9 that night. Dead tired. Feet felt like a street roller had run over them. All I wanted was cheap burritos microwaved with cheese. Chrissy's arrangement waited for me by my door. The note simply said, "Hi." Seriously, if this was a coincidence, it was getting weird. I called Mom. Her reply? Only churches or corporations can afford floral sprays that big. I have a sneaky suspicion Mr. Beaumont is reminding you that he's still watching. Good thing you're out of that family. It still hurts, Mom. You know, about Oliver. Her voice softened. You still love him? I glanced out the window, remembering the dark blonde hair, the blue eyes, the way he smiled. I do, I replied. Mom gave that knowing sigh moms give. Check this out. Karma in action? Maybe it'll make you feel better. Mom sent me a link. The page was about trouble at Beaumont Financial, some kind of upper management conflict, and stock prices were sliding south. Not my life anymore. What I didn't know then, none of it was random. Saturday, November 18th. I was going crazy. I hadn't heard or seen Oliver for 2 weeks. No texts, no calls, nothing. Even our friends hadn't heard anything. Oliver loved acting. He hadn't had a break or a big part or even a small part, but that didn't stop him. But his father might. Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV did not approve of the soft arts. Missing Oliver was like missing a lung. I didn't breathe right, and life seemed pointless. If Oliver had said the relationship was over, I could have dealt. But he hadn't. I'm not even allowed to speak to him. I drove by the theater he worked at, the Looking Glass Theater. Maybe I could see him from a distance, make sure he was all right. His Tesla was parked in the rear. He must be setting up props or making sets or practicing dance moves. I parked in the larger lot and walked to the main door. It was locked. I peered through the window, hoping to see him. A door opened in the back. Several people walked into the lobby, drink cups in hand. They were in sweats, had been dancing, were laughing at something. Oliver came into view. Sweat darkened his hair, stress lined his eyes. My love saw me. His mouth dropped, eyes locking on mine. He stepped toward me. My entire back tightened. I placed my hand on the window, hoping he could feel my love. A man in a dark blue suit trailed my boyfriend. Oliver jumped. A second man in a dark blue suit stood behind me and cleared his throat. You're in violation of the restraining order, Mr. Norwood. Leave now, or I will inform the authorities. I savored one last look, but the men in navy jackets had shuffled Oliver out of sight. There was nothing to do but leave. Monday, November 20th, 1 week before the hearing. I found a lawyer and showed her the restraining order and the papers. She heard my story and said she would investigate. Without any information, I couldn't even begin to defend myself. She thought that the flowers could be possible harassment, but without any proof, it was only a logical guess. Time to find the culprit. Maybe with evidence I could prove Mr. Beaumont was an idiot. I ordered a doorbell camera with next-day delivery. It arrived Tuesday evening. It took me an hour to install it and sync it with my computer. Resolution was better than I thought. Plus, it picked up sound. Wednesday, November 22nd, the day before Thanksgiving. We were rushed. At work, Janet returned. Hair draped casually about her face. Large sunglasses protected her eyes. A stylish black jacket with shoulder pads hung to her knees. This time, she ordered an arrangement filled with orange and yellow carnations, peace roses, sunset-colored marigolds, and golden lilies. It was the evening sky brought down to earth. Mom took the order. I put this one together because I had a sneaky idea that it would end up on my kitchen table, but this time I'd see who delivered it. The florist shop closed at 7:30. Exhausted, I picked up takeout from Gordon's Gourmet Burgers, including a side of their nuclear fries, and arrived back at my apartment about 8:15. The app on my phone hadn't chimed. No one had approached my door. Either I was early or had completely misread the situation. I listened to the news. Beaumont Financial stocks were heading south. Some kind of rift in management. I switched stations. What if Mr. Rowan Ashton Beaumont IV had been the one sending the flowers? Was he watching me? Probably. He had the money. Yet, no flower arrangements were before my door. I unlocked my door, brushed lint off the doorbell cam, and set the food on the table. Let's see what I missed today. I booted my laptop. The camera had only recorded the old lady next door picking up her mail. I plated my food and sat on my couch. Some channels showed reruns of Will and Grace. A shuffle came from my door. I sat up, setting the food aside. Was it happening? At last, I'd get to catch Beaumont's henchman in action. If only he had a mustache to twirl, then he'd be a proper villain. The app on my phone pinged. The camera was recording something. A second shuffle sounded at the door. Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV and his weekly reminder that he was still watching would discover that I was watching them. Is it that hard for rich people to let people live their own lives? Do they get some perverted thrill from being control freaks? I pulled up the feed on my laptop and laughed. Foiled by my own plan, I'd built the floral arrangement too well. The leaves blocked the damn doorbell camera. Why had I even installed the thing? The doorbell pinged 3 times, rapidly. Mr. Rowan Ashton Beaumont IV's goon was getting impatient. I walked over, imagining what I'd tell Mr. Beaumont. Should I scream, pout, give him the silent treatment, maybe grovel and say I'm sorry? No, definitely not that. Knowing him, it was probably a servant. It made sense. Janet must have been his secretary, and Carl, another employee. Mr. Beaumont was too high and mighty to descend to my level. I opened the door and froze. Everything I planned to say vanished from my brain. It wasn't Mr. Rowan Ashton Beaumont IV standing at the door. It was Janet, holding the sunset-colored bouquet in both hands. Her hair covered half her face, the glasses perched on top of her head. She pushed the hair back, revealing the full face, apricot lipstick, a subtle green eyeshadow. I knew the curve of the chin, the slight slouch, the intense blue eyes. "These are for you. Can we talk inside?" Her voice shifted from a soft feminine tone to a firmer, more masculine one. Quickly, after checking the hallway to make sure we were alone, she handed me the flowers I had arranged this afternoon. My jaw opened. My heart beat like a startled bird, fluttering against my ribs. I opened the door wider, and for the first time in weeks, I knew happiness. I held my breath. I couldn't breathe. Impossible as it was, Oliver Beaumont stood at my door, crying. I couldn't stop my own tears. I pulled my love into my apartment, crushing the flowers between us as we hugged. Our kiss tasted salty and wet, our tears quietly combining. November 22, evening. I grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, not because I was thirsty, but because my hands needed something to hold. The man I love was impersonating a woman just to sneak in to see me, and had been trying for weeks. "Apricot looks good on you," I said. "Do you often dress up as a woman?" I closed the door behind him. He smiled, sliding the wig off his head. "Hazards of the job," he replied. "You were Carl too?" I asked. "Fooled you?" Oliver broke into a proud smile. "You don't look good with gray hair." I needed to remain calm before I destroyed any chance of learning the truth. Oliver set the flowers on the table, carefully not looking at me. He adjusted one of the yellow blooms, a gentle tremor in his hand. His face had paled. He was leaner than I remembered, and his tears had smudged the makeup around his eyes. I handed him the beer. "Have a seat." I popped open the can and relished the alcohol taste, letting the mild burn ease into my stomach and relax my mind. This wasn't a conversation I wanted, but the universe often gives you what you need instead. "Hi, long time," he said, opening the beer before sitting down. Oliver held his jaw tight. A muscle twitched in his cheek. "This is awkward." "Small talk. I could do that. I tried to see your play. They wouldn't let me." "It was just dancing. Not a big deal." Oliver stared at a small statue of an elephant on my table, as if hoping it would answer for him. "How long will it run?" I asked. 2 more weeks, Oliver said quietly. "Then we go dark for winter break." He took a long sip of beer, like he needed the pause more than the drink. His fingers tightened around the can afterward, knuckles going pale. Neither of us spoke for a moment. The silence wasn't empty. It was crowded with everything we weren't saying. I leaned back in my chair, forcing my voice to stay level. "You've been sneaking around as Janet and Carl, buying flowers for me just to drop them off at my door?" I exhaled slowly. Why? Oliver let out a shaky breath, his eyes finally lifting to meet mine. Because it was the only way I could see you without him knowing. His voice cracked on the last word, or at least without him being able to stop me. The no-contact order? I asked. Is real, he cut in. At least until Monday. He's got people watching. Not all the time, but enough. The guy at the restaurant? One of them. The men at the theater? Definitely. Oliver swallowed hard. I couldn't risk just showing up as myself. My jaw tensed. So you impersonated a woman? A faint, humorless smile ghosted across his face. I've done stage work. Disguises aren't exactly new territory. He gestured vaguely at his hair. The wig helps. Different posture, different voice. People see what they expect to see. That's insane, I muttered. Then softer. You did all that? Risked getting in trouble with the police? Just to bring me flowers? His eyes smiled with something warmer. You always liked flowers. I sell them, Oliver. He huffed out a small laugh. Yeah, but you also love them. His gaze dropped to the arrangement on the table. I thought, if I couldn't talk to you, at least I could give you something, let you know I didn't just disappear. I dragged a hand through my hair, pacing once across the small living room before turning back to him. Do you have any idea what I thought? I thought your father was messing with me, reminding me he could reach into my life whenever he wanted. Oliver flinched at that. I'm sorry. I did think, but I panicked. He shook his head. After he found out about us, about the ring, he locked everything down, took my phone, changed my accounts. I couldn't call you, couldn't text. He even had my apartment searched. That's how he got your key. A hollow feeling opened in my chest. He told me, like it was nothing. I know. Oliver's jaw tightened. He always makes it sound reasonable, controlled, like he's protecting something valuable, instead of destroying it. I stared at him. Then why are you still there? The question hung between us, heavier than anything else. Oliver didn't answer immediately. He stared down at his beer, turning the can slowly between his palms. Because, he said finally, walking away from him isn't simple. He looked up, and there was something raw in his eyes now. Everything, my tuition, my apartment, my acting classes, it all runs through him. Every account has oversight. Every move I make, he notices. So what? I shot back, sharper than I meant to. You're 22. You said that yourself. You don't have to stay. I know that, he said quickly. I do, but knowing it and doing it are two very different things. Silence fell again. I moved back to the table and sat across from him. Did he make you agree to this? I tapped the restraining order sitting on the counter, like it might hear us, to stay away from me. Oliver hesitated. That was answer enough. Oliver, I said. He didn't exactly ask, he admitted. He framed it as a condition. If I wanted to keep my life as it is, then I needed to cut out unnecessary complications. Bitter air quotes. That meant you. Anger flared, hot and fast. So you chose him? No! Oliver leaned forward, eyes wide. No, I didn't choose him. I chose time. His voice dropped urgently. Kevin, listen to me. I needed time to figure out how to get out from under him without losing everything overnight. I'm not equipped for that kind of free fall yet. I stared at him, searching his face. And where do I fit into that plan? A beat. Right here, he said softly, holding a hand over his heart. My chest tightened. I never stopped loving you, Oliver continued, his voice steadier now, even as tears tracked down his cheeks. Not for a second. That's why I kept coming back, why I kept risking it. I needed to see you, to know I didn't vanish because I wanted to. I swallowed hard, the anger twisting into something far more complicated. You should have told me, somehow. I'm telling you now, he said. That's not the same, I said, but the edge had dulled. Oliver nodded, accepting that. I know. And then his eyes held a little, tiny sliver of hope. Do you still have it? He asked quietly. I froze. What? The ring. My throat tightened. Without breaking eye contact, I reached into my own jacket, still hanging on the back of my chair, and pulled out the small box. I set it on the table between us. Oliver's breath hitched. I was afraid my father had taken it. I opened the box to reveal the rose gold ring. Neither of us touched it. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, the weight of everything pressing down. His father, the lies, the distance, the love that hadn't gone anywhere despite all of it. Finally, I spoke. Is us, worth fighting for? Oliver didn't hesitate. Yes. November 23rd, Thanksgiving. Maybe it was the beer, maybe the sheer audacity of the situation, or maybe we were tired of whatever situation we found ourselves in. Oliver and I relaxed as the night progressed. We talked. At first it was about odd details, the flower arrangements, life at the Looking Glass Theater, then eventually about Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV, his father. Oliver had tried to speak to me earlier, but each time he arrived at my apartment, a man in a dark blue coat had been watching. They weren't watching tonight. Sometime after 1, we spoke about ourselves. Oliver was a struggling actor with Broadway dreams. I'm a florist with dreams of a happily ever after. Neither one of us had found success. At 3 a.m, Oliver finally fell asleep on the couch. He had a kind face. The weeks of guilt had smoothed away with each hour he slept. I watched him breathe, the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of his chest. I wedged a sofa pillow under his head. Unconsciously, Oliver adjusted it, mumbling, "Thanks, hon," before falling asleep again. "Any time, love," I whispered. Not sure where the words came from. I picked up the sunflower afghan lying on the back of the sofa. My mother had made it years ago. The yarn was slightly rough and smelled of her jasmine perfume. With a soft gesture, I covered Oliver, tucking it lightly about his arms. I turned the lights out and went to bed myself, hiding a smile. Day after Thanksgiving, I met Janet for lunch. Oliver's face changed, from pale to crimson in 3 heartbeats. Don't ask me the logic, because my emotions suddenly didn't make any. Make all the jokes you want, but I had 2 really weird reactions when I saw him. The first one I chuckled, because there I sat looking at my love. My cheeks warmed, so did something in my chest. Damn, I'm lucky, and that was the second reaction. That afternoon, the wind was gusting, carrying the sharp scent of brine from Lake Michigan. It was a cold, northwesterly wind, filled with Arctic's chill and lead-gray skies. My phone buzzed. I read the caller ID. The incoming call read Beaumont. My throat clenched. I didn't answer. I was at the store. The small arrangements sat half finished in front of me. Violets, baby's breath, purple anemones. I took a deep breath and paused. The phone rang a second time. I should have silenced it. Instead, I watched it light up. Beaumont again. I had nothing to say to that man. It stopped ringing as I trimmed a stem. He didn't leave a voicemail. However, a minute later, he called again, and again, 10 times in a row. My mouth tasted sour. Why couldn't he leave me alone? What did he want? A tiny fear wiggled its way around my heart, and for a second, only a second, I remembered the first time Oliver and I had met. I'd been setting up the Valentine's bouquet at his grandparents' house. He'd been arranging glass swans on their Valentine's tree. I guess rich people have Christmas trees and Valentine's trees. I remembered the word Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV called me. Gold digger. A text came next. The preview read, "We need to talk. Call me at your earliest convenience." I deleted it and asked myself the same question I had been avoiding. Why hadn't I blocked the number? Because it had never been an issue before. His words rang hollow in my head. "You will never see my son again." And they echoed through me. The humiliation of that night burned just as sharply now as it had weeks ago. The disgust burned in me, a smoldering fire pit that never went out. Deleting the text and blocking Beaumont's number was easy. The next day, news of trouble at Beaumont's Financial hit the headlines. I ignored it. It had nothing to do with me. November 25th. Saturday. I'd met Janet for a quiet dinner, and we returned to my apartment so he could be himself. I watched him slide the wig off his head, use a wet wipe to remove the makeup, and gently hang the dress in the closet. I walked up to him in the bathroom as he used wet wipes to remove the makeup. I wrapped arms about his chest. He had shaved himself smooth, something I appreciated. "Feels nice," I said, carefully kissing the back of his neck. His hand, cool and moist from the wipe, covered mine. "I don't know what to do," I whispered, suddenly aware of how close Oliver was, of the warmth radiating from his body, of the calloused feel of his hand on mine. The smell of the nearby flowers was gentle and filled the room with a softness I desperately wanted to feel. The golden dimness of the lamp eased the stress in my soul. Oliver made circles with his thumb on the back of my hand, his eyes seeking mine. I inhaled, suddenly aware the air held a warmth stretching between us. I wanted to run my fingers through his hair, lean closer, and simply breathe him in, feel his lips pressed tight to mine. My mouth went dry and my heart beat softly in my ears. Hesitantly, I met Oliver's eyes. We shared something in that gaze, the smile lines about his eyes, the dark stripes of his eyelashes, the depth of the reflection in his eyes. For a moment, I saw myself. I inhaled again. My breath was in tune with his, our fingers intertwined in ways that words could not. I pulled my hand from his, let my fingers trail up his arm. Oliver shivered. He licked his lips, and as my hand reached his shoulder, his eyes closed. I caressed his cheek, my palm gently touching the lightly freckled skin. He placed his hand atop mine and shifted both until he kissed my palm. A light kiss, more a gentle tickle. His breath was warm against my skin. Once again, we shared a look. His blue eyes had warmed. I found myself edging toward him, shifting until we sat next to each other. We paused, our breathing slow and unsteady, and then drifted closer. Our lips met, soft and tentative. We paused, our breathing slow and unsteady, and then we drifted closer. We found ourselves seated on the bed, our lips met, soft and tentative, the warmth delicate and hushed. We played Parcheesi for most of the night, spent hours talking, then had another round before finally sleeping until 8. November 26th. We shared breakfast, blueberry waffles, little round sausages, fried eggs. He wore my old University of Chicago sweatshirt and a pair of mismatched sweatpants. It's Sunday. I don't have to work. I reached across the small table and took his hand. It was my turn to rip circles along the back. We could call Uber Eats. Never set foot outside. We'd have 24 hours just to love each other. Oliver intertwined his fingers with mine and hid a sad smile. I wish I could love, but I have dance practice this afternoon. I nodded, sipping my coffee with my other hand. Will your father let you keep working at Looking Glass? The look in Oliver's eyes, the tired sigh, the soft, dejected slump gave me the answer. It was a while before Oliver finally answered. This is my last play. My stomach crawled into my throat. Options were limited. Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV controlled everything. The words blurted out before I could stop them. What if we left, start over somewhere else, somewhere your father can't touch us? We've talked about Portland. What about there? A strange hope burned in Oliver's eyes. What about your family shop? You love it. I love you more. And that's when the idea hit me. I stood up, walked to my boyfriend, and kissed him on the lips. How versatile is your costume department, and how fast can they work? It's theater, love. Why? The smile on my face flickered alive. I've got some phone calls to make. Monday, November 27th, 3 p.m. The courtroom had sterile white walls, acoustic wood paneling, and steady LED lights recessed in the ceiling. Worn silver and black chairs faced toward the raised desk of the judge, and the short staging area for a witness stand and a jury box. Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV stood behind the plaintiff's desk, wearing a black suit and a red tie. His lawyer stood next to him. Behind them sat Oliver, in a silver-gray suit. God, he looked so good. I stood at the defendant's desk, also in a silver-gray suit. My lawyer stood beside me. Her briefcase lay open on the desk, several files visible. Next to it was a bouquet made up of white roses, white chrysanthemums, and subtle sprigs of baby breath, its fragrance a balm in the courtroom. I'd made it this morning. Oliver's knee bounced under the table, a tiny tremor only I would notice. His eyes flicked to me, then to his father, then back again. Mr. Beaumont didn't look at either of us. He stood like a man carved from cold marble, jaw locked, hands clasped behind his back as if he were the judge instead of the plaintiff. The bailiff called, "All rise." We stood. The judge entered. Honorable Marion K. Bannister, a woman with steel-gray hair pulled into a bun so tight it could slice glass. She surveyed the room with the kind of gaze that made grown men reconsider their life choices. "You may be seated." Chairs scraped. My heartbeat didn't slow. Judge Bannister adjusted her glasses. "We are here for Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV versus Kevin Norwood, regarding a petition for a no-contact order on behalf of Oliver Beaumont. Counsel, appearances for the record." Mr. Beaumont's lawyer rose. "Gregory Shaw for the plaintiff, Your Honor." "Well, my honor, well, technically Oliver's and mine," stood next. "Dana Ruiz for the defendant." I kept my eyes forward, but I could feel Oliver stare like a hand pressed between my shoulder blades. He was waiting, hoping, terrified. "Just a little bit longer, love." Judge Bannister flipped through the file. "I understand there have been developments since the initial filing?" Shaw cleared his throat. "Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff wishes to present new evidence regarding the defendant's influence over his son." Influence. That was one word for it. Judge Bannister's gaze sharpened. "And the defense?" Dana stood straighter. Your Honor, we also have new evidence, including documentation and witness statements relevant to Mr. Beaumont's conduct. Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV's head snapped toward her, eyes narrowing. Good. Let him sweat. Judge Bannister folded her hands. Very well, we'll proceed, but let me be clear. I will not tolerate theatrics, intimidation, or attempts to weaponize this courtroom. Understood? A chorus of, Yes, Your Honor. I exhaled slowly. The plan was already in motion. The calls, the disguises, the quiet favors owed to Oliver's theater crew. If everything landed the way it needed to, today would be the first crack in the Beaumont dynasty's armor. I glanced at Oliver. He didn't smile, but hope flickered there, small, stubborn, and burning. Just hang on, my love. Just hang on. My lawyer cleared her throat. Your Honor, before we begin, there is a small matter we need to take care of. May we approach the bench? It is regarding the filing I made earlier today. Mr. Beaumont's eyebrows shot to the top of his head. He whispered frantically to his lawyer. With a quick nod, the judge signaled the bailiff. All parties approached the bench. The bailiff's voice was clear, cutting through the stillness. The stenographer looked up, his fingers pausing. My lawyer approached. I approached. Mr. Beaumont and his lawyer approached. And then Oliver came as well. I brought the bouquet and pulled the ring box from my jacket's pocket. As we all arrived, Judge Bannister frowned. Mr. Beaumont seemed to grow. This is highly irregular. Defense, please state your business, Judge Bannister stated. My lawyer gave me a very subtle nod. I dropped to my knees. Oliver, I have loved you and promised to love you for the rest of my life. Objection! Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV roared. I continued anyway. Will you marry me? Oliver threw himself at me, kissing me so hard I barely was able to slide the ring on his finger. My lawyer turned to the judge. Before we continued, my client has filed the necessary paperwork and has requested that you marry them. For a heartbeat, the entire courtroom froze. Judge Bannister blinked once, slowly, the kind of blink that suggested her brain had momentarily blue-screened. The bailiff's hand hovered near his belt, unsure whether this counted as a security incident or a hallmark moment. Mr. Beaumont looked like someone had replaced his internal organs with live hornets. His face went red, then white, then a mottled shade of disbelief. Gregory Shaw whispered, Sir, breathe. Oliver was still kissing me, hands on my face, ring glinting under the LED lights, like this was the only real thing left in the room. When he finally pulled back, he was crying and laughing at the same time. Yes, he whispered, yes, of course. Judge Bannister cleared her throat, a sound sharp enough to cut through steel. Mr. Norwood, Mr. Beaumont. She paused, recalibrating. The younger Mr. Beaumont. This is highly irregular. My lawyer, Dana, didn't flinch. Your Honor, the paperwork is complete, filed, and time-stamped. Illinois recognizes same-day civil ceremonies performed by a judge. My clients are requesting that you officiate before proceedings continued. Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV exploded. Absolutely not. This is a stunt, an ambush, an attempt to manipulate. Judge Bannister held up a single finger. Silence. Mr. Beaumont, she said, voice cool as dry ice, you will not shout in my courtroom, and you will not accuse the court of manipulation unless you have evidence to support such a claim. He opened his mouth. She raised the finger again. He closed it. Dana continued, Your Honor, the engagement is genuine, the request is lawful, and given the plaintiff's accusations regarding influence, the timing is relevant to the defense. Judge Bannister went very still. For the record, she said slowly, this is a courtroom, not a chapel. A pause. Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV made a strangled sound of protest. My lawyer didn't flinch. Understood, Your Honor. However, Illinois law permits a judge to officiate, and the petition was submitted this morning. Bannister's gaze shifted between Oliver and me, long enough to hurt. Then, "Well," she said, dry as a bone, "this may be the first time in Illinois history that a legal proposal is also a wedding proposal." Another beat. "Bailiff, confirm the paperwork." Judge Bannister looked at me, then at Oliver, then at the bouquet still in my hand, her expression softened by a millimeter. "Mr. Beaumont," "The younger Mr. Beaumont," she said, "is this what you want?" Oliver straightened, shoulders squared, voice steady. "Yes, Your Honor, I want to marry him, and please refer to me as Oliver Norwood. A name change is part of the counterclaim." A tremor ran through Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV, like a man realizing the ground beneath him had shifted, and he was the only one who hadn't moved. "Your Honor," the bailiff interrupted, "the paperwork was filed and verified at 8:47 this morning." Judge Bannister exhaled through her nose. "Very well. The court will take a brief recess. Mr. Norwood and the future Mr. Norwood, please follow me to my chambers. Bring your lawyer to witness." Beaumont's lawyer sagged. He looked like a man defeated before the battle had even begun. The stenographer mouthed, "Oh my God." The bailiff muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, "I've seen everything now." The rose gold ring on Oliver's finger shone proudly in the light. He whispered, "We need to get you one now." Judge Bannister stood. "And when we reconvene," she added, "we will address the plaintiff's claims and the defense's counterclaim." Her gaze flickered to Mr. Rowan Ashford Beaumont IV, and then back to us. "Counterclaim?" Oliver's father bellowed. Judge Bannister rifled through the papers in front of her. "Mr. Kevin Norwood and Oliver Norwood have filed for a 2-year restraining order against you." The end. Thank you, everybody, for joining me and Bentley for our story. And thank you for staying to the end. Peace, my friends. We'll see you next time. I love you all.